Tony, we put you, I asked Ken to elevate you to the screen, even though you're no longer on the panel, since you're a member of the Infrastructure Committee.
Thanks, David. Just to let you know, I have to go off at 10 o'clock. I got another Zoom call I got to be on, just so
That's
you
fine.
know.
Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, I understand. And you're not,
I'll
I
just,
appreciate everything you contribute, whatever time you have.
we'll try. Okay, no problem. Thanks, David.
You're welcome.
Morning, everyone.
Hi, John.
Good morning, all.
Hi, Linda.
Uh,
Okay. It is now 9 o'clock. Um, and I welcome, well, first, I wish everybody a happy new year for 2026 on Captiva. Um, I want to welcome everyone to, I guess, Sleepy Captiva, where we have just went through 3 hurricanes. We have 6 lawsuits underway involving the CCA, the panel, most of the associations at South Seas, Royal RLR over the issues of density. We have dueling petitions at CEPD over dune heights. We have sewer and stormwater studies to try to deal with those 2 major issues on our island. We have 20 undeveloped acres at the Rauschenberg Foundation and a $24 million bond referendum pending on February 10th. And we have a new movie on Amazon Prime that was filmed at RC Otters and is available for people to see, which I'm sure will not win an Oscar. And I welcome the new members of the panel, Jay Brown, who we all know and love, and Bob Rando, who is here for the first time, who is one of the principals of Captiva Cruises, and that's a great addition to the panel. And all of this is good because almost everything that's going on is because people care about this island. And we all do it and we work together and we work it through. So I just wanted to say that since there's so much stuff happening, there's so many moving parts. And for a little island, it's pretty amazing. First thing we'll do is introductions and roll call. I'm David Mintz. John Rosen is here. I see him.
Hi.
Mike Bennett,
Here.
Ken Suarez,
Here.
Jay Brown,
I'm here, David.
Bill Laird,
I'm here.
Bob Randall.
Good morning.
Uh, let's see, Margaret Tymaville.
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning, John Wade.
Hello.
Okay, so I think we have, I know that Bruce McDonald has another appointment and couldn't be on here, and I also heard from Sandy Stillwell. But we clearly have a quorum and we can proceed. Do I have everybody review the minutes, and do I have a motion to approve them?
I motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Hi.
Okay, great. The next thing we have to do initially is elect our offices for the panel for 1 year, the coming year of 2026. There are 4 officers of the panel. There's the president. Currently, that's me, David Mintz. The vice president currently is Bruce McDonald. Secretary, the former president, secretary was Tony Lappy. He's no longer on the board, so we have to fill the secretary position with someone different. And the treasurer is currently Sandy Stillwell Youngquist. So the first thing we'll do is ask for nominations. It's just a majority vote of the board members. So the first thing we'll do is ask for nominations for president.
I nominate David Mintz for president.
Does anybody else want to be president?
No.
Okay. All those in favor of David Mintz being president for 1 more year, please say aye.
Aye.
I
For vice president, do we have a nomination of vice president? I would nominate and continue to have Bruce McDonald. I think he still wants to be vice president. Does anybody else want to be vice president?
no.
Okay, all those in favor of Bruce McDonald continuing as vice president, please say aye.
Hi.
I
All those opposed? Thank you. The next open position is secretary. I personally would nominate Jay Brown, only because he is particularly helpful, useful on all these matters. Are there any other nominations besides Jay Brown for secretary? Nobody wants to be secretary? Okay, all those, Jay, since you're nominated, will you accept the position?
Yes.
Reluctantly. All those in favor of Jay Brown, say yes, please.
Yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, nay. Jay Brown, congratulations on becoming secretary. Okay, treasurer, Sandy Stillwell is currently the treasurer. I would nominate Sandy to continue to be treasurer for 1 more year unless someone else would like to be nominated, and then we'll have an election. Is anybody would like to be treasurer and either self-nominate or nominate someone else? Okay, all those in favor of Sandy Stillwell continuing as treasurer, please say aye.
Hi.
I
All those opposed? Sandy Stillwell, you're not here, but you are now will continue to be the treasurer. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the updates based on availability in the community. The first we have is a report from Sergeant Rich Zeltman, and Sergeant Zeltman is here.
Morning, David, and Happy New Year to all.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just to go over just a couple of things.
Could you speak a little louder or closer to the mic, Sergeant?
Yes. Could you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, just a couple of things to go over. We had a report of somebody driving a golf cart on our new dune system on the beach. And we don't want to do that. That damages the new sea oats on that dune system, and it protects our island. So we don't want to have anybody drive golf carts on our And I was surprised they were able to get a golf cart on there because of the sand, but it just so happened to be a day after a rain that we had, which packed the sand down just enough to get a golf cart on there. But we don't want to drive golf carts on a beach at all. Nevertheless, our new dune that we have up. We also have
Sergeant, do we have anything that informs people they're not supposed to drive on the beach? You know, if I'm here from Indianapolis or something, I've never been here before, and I'm 16 and I got a golf cart, is there any way I'm going to find out I shouldn't be driving this on the beach,
yeah,
other
so
than maybe common sense?
well, there it is common sense, but I believe Brighton's going to probably discuss that up here
Okay.
shortly.
It also is a violation of the law. It's a
Yes, it is.
violation of the Captiva Code, of the Lee County Code.
Yes.
Right, I understand that. I just wonder if there's people from outside, if there's a way for them to know that.
Yep. Regarding signs and other things, I think Brighton's going to discuss that here shortly.
Okay.
But it is against the law and our county ordinance on Captiva. So, also, I just want your folks to be mindful about the construction on Andy Rossi. You know, we've got people. We're seeing people walk into those construction areas, walking down Andy Rossi and wandering into those areas, and we're asking that your viewers not do that. That's dangerous and it's illegal as well. We also have folks driving past the orange cones on some of the construction sites, most notably the Mucky Duck. They've got signs up that say this is a construction site, you know, and they got cones up, and people will try to manage to maneuver themselves through that area to park to get to the beach. And we don't want that to happen either. That's a construction site and it's dangerous and it's illegal as well. So be mindful for that. I do want to go over just a couple of stats, you know, for speaking of reviewing this past 2025 year, just so that the panel knows that we're busy behind the scenes. We responded to almost 4,000 calls for service this past year, anywhere from providing a helping hand to somebody to more serious crimes like burglaries. We had a robbery, burglary, grand theft. We captured a grand theft auto suspect. We also captured somebody that was breaking into cars this year. And we also handle, you know, water rescues out on the water. You know, we're responsible for not only Captiva, but also the barrier islands. So we handle that, and we try to protect wildlife. So we just want to make sure that the folks out here know that, you know, the sheriff's office is here working behind the scenes 24/7 to provide the protection that is expected and that we provide for the island. Also, we handled, I think, close to 500 traffic related enforcement actions on the island as well. So we want to make sure that, again, the residents here are safe and that folks abide to the law of driving and their behavior. So I just wanted to provide that update regarding what we've done in 2025, and we look forward to another year. We hope that we have no crimes or incidents or people causing issues for 2026, but we're here in case they are.
Wow. Thank you so much, Sergeant, and thank your colleagues for their wonderful service. I will tell you personally, seeing the cars, your car and the other cars of Chris and Christine, visible all the time is really a great deterrent to people doing wrong things. And I think it gives a lot of sense of satisfaction and safety to the people who live on Captiva. So, you know, you may be doing things behind the scenes, and as you suggest and tell us, but what you do, not behind the scenes, but where we all can see you, is very helpful and gives a good sense of security to all of us. I think we all feel that way. Are there any questions for Sergeant Zeltman?
I was surprised to hear about the number of more serious crimes, the burglaries and things like that. Um, are these, where are these? And what's the frequency?
So we get, we got an open road and we get a lot of vacationers coming down. And some of them bring down their nephews and their grandkids and they're from around the country, around the world. And some of them aren't the best behaved kids. So some of them got sticky fingers and they'll go, and that's why you have to make sure you lock your car doors and your doors to your home, because you may get a criminal coming to the island from outside that might be related to somebody that's a nephew of somebody. So, we've had some car burglaries along Captiva Drive this past year, but we caught them. Deputy Lusk was able to identify who it was, and we were able to apprehend that person.
Haven't we also had historically a lot of burglaries on docks?
Yes. Yep. People keep their fishing rods and fishing equipment and their boats on docks, and people come from the outside, all along this coast of Florida. Essentially, they go up and down the state, and they go on people's vessel and steal their fishing equipment.
Okay.
Just so you know that there was a, sometimes it's overflow from Sanibel. Like we had somebody steal a car on Sanibel, and they wound up at Allison Hagerup, and Deputy Lusk was able to capture him. So, we're not exempt from criminal behavior. We're a nice, quiet island, but we're not, exclusive from the mainland.
You missed the dead end sign. Right.
Yeah, there was no through
It's just a
traffic
little
after that.
shout out from my business and, the help that you guys provide. We get an unruly guest from time to time, not too often, but we certainly appreciate your presence, and it makes the quick response time is unbelievable. So thanks on behalf of my business.
Any other questions for Sergeant Zeltman? Okay, thank you, Sergeant, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
Captiva Fire District update, Jeff Powell, and we have with him Jeff Brown, who is the chair or president of the board of the fire district. I'm not sure. Jeff, are you the president or the chair?
The chair of the fire commission.
Okay. So Jeff Powell, there you are.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. How are you today? I'll keep the normal fire district update stuff short because I'm sure the topic we'll speak on is what everybody's here to listen to anyway. So we'll skip right to the referendum portion
Jeff,
of the
can I just
meeting.
interrupt you for a second because I just want to point to the agenda. We're going to have a presentation from Jeff Powell and maybe Jeff Brown on the facts surrounding this issue, but on the agenda, the full discussion of the referendum and everything revolving around that is on the agenda scheduled for 9:55. So I think we sort of separated out the factual presentation from the discussion of the panel. So we can ask, I would suggest that we ask whatever factual questions we have of the Jeffs, but that we save discussion among ourselves to that element, that portion of the agenda. Thank you. Sorry, Jeff. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, no worries. I'll try and stay on as long as I can. So if something else comes up from a factual standpoint, I can answer. But yeah, I'll just give you the like you said, the factual part from the fire district as far as the referendum goes. And then I know Jeff will have a few comments to make as well. And then any questions, hopefully one of us can answer or get back to you if we can't for some reason. So, but yeah. So anyway, so we all know there's a referendum vote coming up. Referendum is scheduled for February 10th. That is going to be held at the CCA. It is from 7 to 7. Everyone should have by now received the mailer from the Lee County Elections Office with directions on how to, if you want to mail in vote or if you're going to vote in person. So hopefully everybody's received that. If you have not, reach out to the Lee Elections and have a conversation with them if you did not receive it by now. Those went out roughly a month ago. So even with the slow mail, whatever address you had on file with them is where that would have went to. And I have spoken to quite a few people out here who have received those already. So if you haven't, go ahead and reach out to them. But the election in-person voting will be at the CCA from 7 to 7 on February 10th. One just quick.
This election is only by registered voters.
That is correct. Yes, you have to be a registered voter of Captiva to vote in this election. Correct. Yep. That is how that's how state law works for referendums for this type of matter. That's not a selection process that we as a district get to choose. That's how it's set up in state law. So yes, you do have to be a registered current voter of Captiva in order to vote in this election. Just one thing I just want to clear up because there was a few phone calls I received, just a few misconceptions. We do know that the Rauschenberg Foundation has entered into contracts and discussions with a potential buyer. They did notify us that we are not that buyer. So we do know that this referendum was not and is not tied specifically to the Rauschenberg property. The referendum is for a max of 24 million for property of those needs that we identified before. So I know a few people called and they're like, well, I heard it sold, so I guess I don't have to vote. Just want to make sure everybody's aware that that is not the case. That is not the way the referendum was written. The 24 million was based on our original offer to the foundation for that part of the parcel. So that is why that max number is on that referendum vote. That is a max number only. That is not a has to be number or a guaranteed number. That was a max based on that current offer. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. So definitely do still go out and vote. The referendum is still important. Whatever your feelings on the matter are, it is still important to us as a fire district. We've had an ISO survey recently. We've had multiple hurricanes recently, and we've seen the potential for future development on the island. And as a fire district, we're focused on public safety and the needs of this community going forward. Not what they are today and tomorrow, but what they are the next 5, 10, 15 plus years for that island. And if we've learned anything from all these scenarios lately is our current situation is not prepared for the next 10 to 15 years plus in this community. Our ISO surveys pointed out that we are understaffed for the services and the today's environment and public safety. So they've alerted us that we need to hire at least one more per person on staff. Once we brought Lee County EMS in-house, that took up bedrooms and storage space. So currently, we actually don't even have enough room in the current station to house our current apparatus. We have a piece of equipment that we have to store in town that's used during hurricanes for high water and off-road capabilities that we can't actually house on the island because we don't have enough room to keep it here. So the current station we know going forward as development increases on this island, rental properties increase on this island, as the daily usage out here increases, we know we're not suited for the next 10, 15 plus years. So that's where that referendum comes in. We've done an FAQ on our website. I know the panel was going to send that out to their list last night. David, I believe that was done. Ken said he was going to send it out last week. The CCA also was sending that out to their list. If for some reason you didn't get any of those, our website, captivafire.com, right on the homepage at the top, there's a bright red toolbar at the top, says referendum FAQ. You can click on that. We've put as many questions on there without being overbearing on there of questions we've either A, already received or B, expected to receive. So there's a whole bunch of questions on there. You can click on those and view them. If you still have more questions and they're not answered in any of these forums, please reach out to me. Hopefully everybody has my email, my cell phone, the station phone. Uh, if you don't, 239-472-9494, and just ask for me. Leave me a message, whatever. I'll call you back directly and ask me any questions you want on the topic. But that is a good place to start. Um, like I said, specific needs we identified, future resilient fire station for severe weather events and emergency situations. We've done the best we can in this station. We've added flood proofing, but the reality is our station has flooded 3 times with the last 3 hurricanes. So at some point in the future, uh, to be resilient for these storms that unfortunately we know we're going to continue to get. Hopefully we don't get them anytime soon, but we know it's possible and they're out there. Probably one of the most important things that I hear on a daily basis from residents is a permanent landing zone for emergency helicopter usage out here. We know, hopefully everybody knows the only main one that we had out here is on that Rauschenberg property. Again, we don't know who the potential buyer is or what their intention is for it, but most likely that LZ is going to go away at some point. And now we're left with a few residents on the island who have enough space or have a current empty lot that they haven't built on yet that they're relying and allowing us to utilize those. We know empty lots on Captiva are few and far between, and they're not going to be here forever. So, finding a permanent solution to that problem is imperative to us as a fire district, as I know it is to many of you residents going forward. Dedicated facilities to distribute emergency supplies and stage resources after hurricanes. That lot also served an important role in most of the hurricanes we've had out here, going back to Charlie and beyond. We know when we have major events, there's a lot of resources that come to this island and supplies and everything else that are needed. So having a place to stage those things pre-hurricanes for supplies best we can, as well as post bringing in resources after a hurricane is important to us and the community. A fire training facility. We used to rely on South Seas employee housing when they still had that. That was our main source of fire training out here. They had a building that they had condemned and weren't using anymore. And prior to being torn down, they allowed us to do training on it on a daily basis. Once that building was torn down, we're left with going and paying employees to go off island on overtime and take equipment off island to do this training that we just don't have the space and the ability to out here anymore. And then constructing of a public safety dock. You guys know Rich just brought it up in his thing. They have a boat that they use to respond to all the out islands. I'm sure everyone knows we have a fire and rescue boat too out here that we respond to just about any emergency on the water right now, whether that's a medical emergency or it's fire. So having a space that all of public safety can go to and be close and in our backyard, as well as using that to bring supplies and patients in after is imperative to us for a fire district. So all the needs that we've identified for the purpose of this referendum have not changed just because the foundation hasn't agreed to sell it to us. Like I said, we don't know who they sold it to and we don't know what their intention is. They may still be willing to sell to us. We don't know. So, it's important that we go through with this referendum. Unfortunately, even if we didn't have a reason, it's too late. So we definitely have to go through with the referendum. But our needs have not changed. If anything, if this property has sold to somebody who's a developer, if anything, all of these needs are more important than they were before. If it's a developer that's going to develop this, that's more people, more resources needed. So we all know that. One of the questions we did receive a handful of times, it is referenced on our website, is what's the cost of it? Again, the max is 24 million. That is not the number that we have to spend or even likely will spend, but that is the max. What does that mean to you as an individual taxpayer? And why haven't we put a specific number on our website of this is exactly what it's going to cost you on a year? It's somewhat of a complicated answer, but I'll do my best. Being that this isn't done as an assessment, this is done based on ad valorem taxes. So that number can change and will change on your taxes annually until the debt is satisfied. Unfortunately, without knowing any of those variables, it's hard to put exact numbers on it. But in today's dollars, in values of today's island, interest rates, and general terms of 15 to 20 years, we're looking at trying to keep that around a 1 mil increase on taxes. So you're roughly looking at $1,000 per million of value. That's on today's valuation of the island. As the island value increases and density increases, obviously that number will go down. And it's also dependent on what the interest rate and the term is at the time of offering bonds. So, if interest rates go down, obviously that number is going to go down too. But that's the number we were trying to keep it at or below in order to satisfy that number with the current offer we had.
Jeff, I'll add that the number also goes down if the $24 million is not spent. So if we identify a property that meets most of the needs of the fire district that cost, let's say, $4.8 million, it would be 20% of that number. So it would be $200 per million of assessed valuation. We're only going to pay interest on and we pay the bonds that we borrow, and we would only tax to cover that. So if we're able to identify a property that's significantly less, the cost to the taxpayers would be significantly less as well. So I think the chief has covered just about everything from the fire district perspective. I'm going to speak not as the chairman of the fire district, because the Board of Commission, the other two commissioners, and I decide as a board, but as simply a private citizen. When I first found out that the Rauschenberg property was going to be made available for sale, my immediate thought was, what are we going to do about our helicopter landing zone? That, as Jeff said, is a critical component of providing life safety services out here on Captiva. It always has been. The fire district has used that property for the past 40 or 50 years through the generosity of Bob Rauschenberg himself and through the generosity of the foundation. Knowing that property was going to be coming on the market, in all likelihood, whoever buys it is not going to leave it as a helicopter landing zone. And I think, I've been saying for a while, we need to control our own destiny. The citizens of Captiva need to have and own a dedicated helicopter landing zone. We need to have site available to address all of the needs of future needs of the fire station, the fire district, as Jeff outlined. So this referendum, we decided to go forward with the referendum without knowing if the Rauschenberg Foundation was going to sell us the property or not, because the needs don't change. The fire district's needs 5 or 10 years from now are exactly as Jeff has outlined. We've maxed out the fire station that we currently have. The island, as it continues to develop, only puts more of a burden on the fire district, and the storms that we've had, we've identified that we need, additional equipment. We purchased the high water vehicle. There may be other assets that we need to address future storms. So to me, this referendum is about supporting the needs of the fire district into the future. And I think it's also, important for the citizens of Captiva to weigh in on this. As a fire commission, we did not feel comfortable just going off on our own and doing this. First of all, we're limited by state statute what we can do in the way of borrowing funds. I always felt that it was important for the citizens, for the voters of Captiva to weigh in on this issue. And I think it's incredibly important that when we stand up before the Board of County Commissioners at the next development application or zoning hearing, it's important for us as a fire district to say, hey, the citizens of Captiva really support the fire district, and they have support our need for a helicopter landing zone. They support our need for a more resilient station. They support our need for providing marine services and a dock that can be used in the event of the storm. So to me, this is a referendum about supporting the fire district and sending a message to the county that the citizens of Captiva support the district. I think David will open it up to any questions. I know that the chief and I actually have a fire board meeting at 11 o'clock, so our availability after 10:30 or so is going to be limited. So if anybody has any questions now that for the chief or for myself, we can address those. We're not going to take questions regarding the Rauschenberg property sale. That's not something that we're no longer involved with that, and we really can't speak to what the Rauschenberg Foundation or any other potential developer is going to do with that property.
Okay, so are there any, again, obviously the relationship between the referendum and the Rauschenberg property, there is a relationship there, and that will be part of the discussion of the panel when we get to that. But I think the fire district has made it clear what their limitations are with respect to what they can speak to under the law. So are there any questions from the panel members regarding any of the presentation that Jeff Powell or Jeff Brown made? Yeah, Linda.
What would be the review and approval process for the projects that you decide to pursue if you are funded the $25 million? How does the community voice their opinions?
All of the meetings of the Fire Commission are held under the Florida Sunshine Laws. You're welcome to attend those meetings. But in addition to that, I personally will make every effort to communicate through the community panel, because I think that's the most effective way to communicate to the community, to broadcast what it is that we intend to do. We don't have any other, we don't have a plan B that we can identify today. But I do want to begin the process to identify, if there are other parcels that are available or may become available. We would certainly come back and say, okay, we've identified, XYZ parcel, and give opportunity for the voters and citizens and property owners of Captiva to provide input. And then the board, assuming that they have the authority through the referendum, the board would make the final decision as to which direction to go with providing for the needs of the fire district.
Yeah, so Linda, the referendum approves an up to amount for it. Any actual spending of funds still has to be done at a board level in a public meeting by resolution. So just because just if the referendum passed for 24 million, we can't just go out and spend it tomorrow. It still has to be done in public meetings with approvals and votes of the actual commission.
So I understand this process from some of my.
Yeah.
I think it's a little open. That's discussion. Okay. I feel like there needs to be more review and approval by the community. Okay, that was one, rather than one can present it to the community and then the community just comments. But that's my opinion. Another question I have on the millage, does it become, when do we wait for bonds to be issued and then it folds into the millage rate for the community, or is the intent that we start running at this 1 mil increase so that you have monies available now?
No, unless we borrow the money, there's no reason to tax the residents for money we may borrow in the future. So that would not be something that I would consider. We're not going to, set aside and develop a piggy bank for it. If the referendum is approved, we have a line of credit to go do a deal. And then once we close on the property, it wouldn't, there would be taxation that would occur, the following year. So the interest would accrue, and then we would, determine what the millage rate increase has to be to cover the bonds, and it would occur in the following tax year.
Is there any funding from the state and or Lee County and or the federal government that can help pay for these in resiliency funds?
We would certainly take a look at that. Should we have another hurricane? I know that on Sanibel, the fire district there was able to tap into some federal funds to rebuild their station on the north end of the island. Jeff and the staff at the fire district are very good about pursuing those funds. If they're available. We've done, we've already made application and received funds from FEMA for past storms. So should we have another storm that would provide us an opportunity to make application to the federal government, to the state government, or to the county, we would certainly pursue outside funds to minimize the cost of the taxpayers.
Yeah, Linda, I actually sit on the Disaster Advisory Council for Lee County.
Okay.
So, not that gives us preferential treatment, but just so not to make it sound like that, but aware of funding as it becomes available. It's hard to tie future projects to, past storms is kind of the difficulty as far as just resiliency goes. But yes, there are opportunities out there. We have spoken to Lee County directly about this previously. They didn't at the time really have any money they were looking to provide for us. But those discussions, especially at a state or federal level, are always an option, of course.
But I'll also point out, Jeff, that EMS currently pays us rent for the fire district. So we would explore every opportunity to seek funds from the county, state, or federal level.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I don't think waiting for the next hurricane. My experience.
Well, we can't apply. I mean, there are no open programs, as Jeff said, that we can fund, potential future disasters. So we would, should we have a storm, should the station be compromised as a result, then we have the opportunity to apply for funds, just like Sanibel did in their last storm.
In my experience, there were funds available for. So I would. Okay. And finally, is North Captiva part of, would be part of the funding of some of this, for example, with the dock?
No. North Captiva is a separate entity.
So the docks, even though that's part of for the sheriffs, which will support North Captiva.
We would have a conversation with the sheriff's department and the county about a cost share on a dock, but North Captiva itself does not contribute to the budget of the Captiva Fire.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Again, we're going to have a full discussion of the relationship of the Rauschenberg Foundation and this referendum a little later on the agenda. Are there any other questions for Jeff Brown or Jeff Powell regarding their bond referendum as they presented it on the panel? Ken, are there any questions from the community to Jeff or Jeff?
There are not.
Okay. I think you guys made a clear presentation. I think that just to clarify, and we'll talk about it later, we don't know. I mean, we have a pretty good guess of who purchased the property, which we'll talk about, but we don't know whether that contract will be performed or whether or not what will happen or if it will ever close. And we don't know if there are any conditions that were placed on that contract that may relate to the fire district. So I think part of what the fire district is doing, fire control district is doing, is making sure or trying to make sure they have the funds available under any conditions that they may face in any circumstances that occur over the next.
Yes, David, I'll just elaborate on that. I mean, one thing that I learned as a result of this process is, in order to be taken seriously as a potential buyer of property, we have to have the funding available. For us to go to any property owner, whether it be the Rauschenberg Foundation or any other property owner on Captiva, and say, hey, we'd like to buy your property, but we don't know if the voters are going to give us the approval to do it. So, you're going to have to go through this bond referendum process, and everything would be contingent upon us getting financing. So having the ability to do it, I think, is incredibly useful.
Yeah, we heard that multiple times during the process of, well, how do we know you can afford it, or how do we know the community is going to support it? And this is the measure that does that, right? If we have this referendum and the community comes out and supports this measure, it's easy to point to that, no matter who that source is, whether it's a private owner or just when we're dealing with the state and at county levels, when we can point to things and say, no, we have the community support behind us. This is what the community wants and desires, not just us as a fire district saying, this is what we want or we think we need. It's better when we can stand up and say, no, we have the community behind us. They're bringing these to us. It's a lot easier for us to do that. And I thank you guys as a panel and as a community as a whole. You guys have always supported us in our endeavors and our mission. And you guys are always there for us. And I really appreciate that as the chief. And I know the board does as well. So just want to thank you guys.
Absolutely. Jeff,
I'd like to make a comment or two. First of all, let me thank Jeff Powell and Jeff Brown and the other commissioners for presenting this. From my perspective, I can't tell you how important the passage of this referendum is for all the reasons that were stated. The importance not only of the helicopter, but other opportunities that may come about as a result of the growth and development of the island that are going to be needed for the fire district to provide. And to have, as both Jeff and Jess said, the available funds immediately to respond gives you the immediate credibility in any transaction. And I just support this wholeheartedly. And I encourage the community to come out, the registered voters, and to ensure that this referendum passes. And if I understand correctly, that once it's passed, it will be what I term an evergreen referendum, meaning it will always be available to the extent that it's not used, similar to, let's call it, a line of credit available. And Linda's points about having community involvement and discussion, I think it's important of what they're going to be used for. But I think the first step is for the community to support this, get it passed, so that it has the firepower, no pun intended, the department to react when opportunities arise. So I can't encourage the community to come out and vote for this on February the 10th at the Captiva Community Civic Association. So thank you very much to both you and the other commissioners for presenting this in a fine presentation of the frequently asked questions, which I thought was very thorough.
Okay, what I'd like to do, thank you, John, for your comments, but I would like to reserve response to that. People may disagree, people may have different feelings, they may have some subtle thoughts about it. I would rather than have that discussion with the fire department representatives here about supporting and not supporting, since they cannot take a legal position with respect to that, I'd like to save that discussion fully for the part of the agenda, because I'm sure we'll have there may be some dissenting views on this. Okay. Any other questions?
I just want to, one final thing, because it may not have sounded like this. I think our sheriff's department on a scale of
You're breaking
10.
up. Linda, you're breaking up.
I think our sheriff's department and fire department are tremendous. On a scale, if we had to give out 5 stars, I would give out 10 to both departments. And I appreciate you guys. I think we all appreciate so much.
All right. Any other factual questions related to the referendum and the presentations that Jeff made? Okay, Jeff, do you have anything more to say about this?
I'm good. Thank you, David.
Okay, Jeff Brown?
I'm fine, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. CEPD, Brighton Hurd, General Manager.
Morning, David. Yesterday, we had our monthly board meeting, and I presented a proposal to the board to complete the dune restoration process, which would include activities such as installing the ropes and bollards, some additional plantings around public entrances, deciding on the public entrance configurations that Allison Hagerup and Andy Rossi installation of Moby mats, and as Sergeant Zeltman mentioned, the installation of additional signage to help prevent the occurrences of folks walking and traversing the dunes with vehicles, as we've unfortunately seen over the last couple of weeks. I have received some positive direction for those activities, and I'm looking forward to implementing them as soon as possible. The Australian pine removal program is in full swing right now. You may notice some trees from Joshua Tree, some trucks from Joshua Tree on the island today. They're actually beginning the first round of removals. I've got about 60 trees that will be removed over the next 2 weeks. If anyone else is interested in adding your name or your property to the list, you can contact our office at 239 472-2472 or email us at info@mycepd. Generally, I will come out and meet with the landowner, look at the trees that they'd like to remove, and then I coordinate with Joshua Tree to schedule an appointment to go look at the trees with the company. They provide an estimate to me. Once I've approved it, they can begin to schedule the appointment to remove the trees. And we've been working with property owners to work around rentals and other various aspects that have made it a little more difficult to remove the trees, such as eagles. There's a nest of eagles on the island, and we're going to coordinate removals of trees in the vicinity of that nest so that they occur after April, after the chicks have fledged the nest. So if anyone's interested, we do still have plenty of funding available in the program, and I'm happy to remove as many of these trees from the island as we can get. Those are all the updates that I have today. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Brighton?
I have one. Brighton, all of the property owners along the beach, have you put out any rules or anything as to how we should traverse over the dunes that have been planted?
Part of the proposal that I put out to the board yesterday was a reevaluation of all crossings of the entire dune system on the island. The county has requested that we send them a GIS file of every final path. So I know that when Earth Balance did the planting, they didn't coordinate with us much at all and left paths where they thought they should, and some were not left at all. Some were left in the wrong places. So we're going to do a reevaluation of those crossings to determine where additional crossings need to be installed and where others may need to be shifted so that they aren't crossing over property lines now that they're at more of a dog leg angle as opposed to just going
Well, I
straight
just
up and
wondering is,
over.
will every property owner have a pathway that they can reach their beach? All property owners along the beach?
If they historically have had a path, they will have a path in the future.
Okay.
Any other questions for Brighton? John, would you like to add something here, since you're on the board of the CEPD? John, wait.
No, I'm good.
Okay. There are two things that I know the community is aware of. There's obviously, I mentioned it earlier, that's dueling petitions on whether the dune should be at 10 feet or 12 feet. I'm assuming there's some litigation surrounding that, so that's still, we have 12-foot dunes from Hagerup south and 10-foot dunes, I guess, from Hagerup north. And I assume that's an issue that's still going to have to be resolved either through the workings of the board or through litigation in some fashion. And so that's something that's still pending. Am I right about that?
Yeah, it's still pending technically. It's public knowledge that Andreas and the Mucky Duck has filed a lawsuit against the CEPD. We were advised not to talk about it in yesterday's meeting. I can only speak for myself at this point. I do believe that There needs to be more community involvement and discussion about what's occurred and what the result of these dune heights turned out to be in the village area. It's not right. There haven't been any adequate answers. So I agree. I think it's a pending issue that I think the community needs to speak up on a little bit more, I think, proactively if they want to do something about it. The board doesn't seem to have a lot of interest in making any changes, so it remains a discussion.
Okay. I just want the community to be aware of that. The other thing, Brighton, I just want to suggest to you that in the past, when they did the ropes and the ballards, there was always confusion and some controversy over whether they were going to use round poles or square poles or where the holes were or what kind of ropes there are and whether they're tied into nice marine knots or whether they just run through the poles. And some people were quite upset about the unsightly ways it was done in the past at certain other times. So I recommend that you get have discussion with the community as best you can so that since the ropes and the ballards are going to be very visible, that they're done in a way that satisfies the aesthetic of the island and meets the needs of the community. And just don't assume that any rope or any pole will do the job because that has not been the case in the past. And I know you're new to this community, and that's very important of how this beach looks because the beach is one of the most important things of on Captiva.
David,
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, Brighton. David, I have echoed those sentiments to the board multiple times. And one thing that Brighton didn't mention this morning, just to give the community a little bit of insight. We did approve to hire Coastal Vista to do it's a four-phase proposal of which we approved the first two phases to provide some preliminary designs for specific parts of the dune system that will include the paths. And I would hope through the administration and the CEPD that we do get that type of detail. It was discussed yesterday at length.
Okay. Okay, Brighton, and the community, and I can even offline tell you some people who were concerned about this and they would be happy to speak with you about it.
Sure. And I know that many of you are familiar with Bob Johnson, and he's installed many of the ropes and bollards in the village area. And he is who I've been consulting with for installation of future ropes and bollards, and they would potentially match exactly what Sunset Captiva currently has with a
Okay,
1-inch cotton rope and
okay, so people who
bollards.
are interested in this, I guess, should take a look at what Sunset Captiva has and make sure that that's something that they feel comfortable with and get back to you on that.
Sure, absolutely.
That'd be great. Any other questions for Brighton or John?
One last thing I'd like to remind the community. It was spoken of yesterday. I mentioned it yesterday, and it seems to get lost in a lot of the noise. There is This is not new. There is a system built into the CEPD charter of rules that allows for any property owner to apply to the CEPD for any changes they may want to make on their on their Gulfront property or even Bayfront for that matter. That would be tremendously helpful. It has been largely ignored over the years, namely because it hasn't really been an issue because we've had legacy dunes. But with these new dunes and some of the areas that are still to be developed, if there are any property owners that want to specifically address any sort of changes or renovations that may impact the dune system in front of their house, please reach out to the CEPD. And we have a process, an application process, for which would be very specific to outlining whatever changes might be proposed, and it would go up in front of the board for review. And it would be a very, I would say, effective step in any potential change that a property owner might want to do or have concerns for in changing their view or their height for the dunes.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a challenge for CEPD. I think it should be done amiably And I think that there are people that feel very strongly, I gather, that the 12-foot dune should remain. I think there are people who very strongly feel they should have the flexibility that John just referenced. And there are some people that think it should be 10-foot dunes. So I think you have a job in front of you and I think the most important thing you can do is get some sort of compromise consensus or some sort of consensus from the community so everybody feels good about what happens. And I think transparency is the key. So we have confidence that you guys will work it out. And the most important thing is keep this community unified and not divided over issues that should be able to be worked out. Okay?
Agreed.
Thank you. SCCF, Matt DePaulis.
Hey everyone, good morning. A couple of quick updates for you. So we have the start of the legislative session today. That's kicking off right now. Opening ceremonies are ongoing, so that'll run for 60 days. So we're excited to have a hopefully beneficial session for our islands down here. So I would encourage everyone to sign up for our action alerts, and that's the way that we communicate legislative priorities, changes to bills, and put out a call for advocacy efforts, whether that's calling your elected representatives, sending emails. Our action alerts will be the easiest way to do that. In other local issues, the water situation hasn't really changed. The lake is still pretty well above 13 feet. It's 13.2 right now, but we're still not getting any water from the lake. The estuary is limping along just from the rainstorms that we've gotten. So we're getting minimal flows. We're still pretty stressed in the upper estuary. Um, and there's no governing board meeting this month. It's a workshop, so there won't be any change likely in January. They will meet in February, so hopefully we'll be able to reevaluate the situation in the estuary then, and hopefully not too much damage has been done at that point. And then another issue that has been cropping up, I don't anticipate it being as volatile on Captiva, but there's a helicopter charter company that is launching tours from a barge off of Fort Myers Beach and doing seemingly low flying tours that have been infringing on people's ability to even go kayaking and stuff in the area around Fort Myers Beach and the tip of Sanibel. So if you hear that issue cropping up, I think there's been a lot of pushback on the community from Fort Myers Beach specifically. There's a meeting tomorrow on Fort Myers Beach where the owner, I think, will be making a presentation, or at the very least, there's a elected body that's discussing the issue tomorrow on the island. So hopefully we'll get some more answers then. We don't have a lot of clarity on what actually is taking place, so we haven't come out with a strong opinion, but just generally flying helicopters low over people trying to enjoy our resources and areas that have wildlife is not going to be beneficial to the wildlife. So that's something that we've been hearing a lot about. But happy to take any questions on any of those.
There, Matt, you just said that the helicopters are making it difficult for people to kayak. Are you talking about noise or wind or from the blades of the helicopter?
Everything I've heard has been kind of second and third hand accounts, but there was a report of the helicopter flying low enough over people in kayaks that actually physically had their boats moved by the downdraft from the helicopter.
Okay. Well, we hope we don't have helicopters flying low over the Roosevelt Channel. That would certainly affect the kayakers. Yeah.
Hey Matt, what about red tide? Any signs of red tide?
There hasn't been anything popping up in any of the testing that we've been seeing. So there's that red drift algae that has been cropping up on Fort Myers Beach. I've seen more of it in the news than I've seen actually in person on the beaches, but that's not something that has a toxic component to it. So it's just the physical algae that's washing up.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Matt? Are there questions for Matt from our participants in the audience, Ken?
No, there are not. I did want to mention that Matt helped provide some background material for the letters the panel asked to have sent on the 3 items at the last meeting, and those were all submitted prior to the deadline.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
Wonderful.
Anything else? Okay. The next thing on the agenda says county code enforcement update. Ken and I are still primarily me because I haven't gotten to it yet. I'm working with Ken on the notice to the Captiva residents about what are the key provisions of our county code, so that people are aware of it. Things like the 7-day minimum for rentals, 2-foot setback on the shoulder along Captiva Drive, things of that nature, signage. So hopefully I will have that for everybody, and Ken and I will have it for everybody at the February meeting. There is one thing that I do want to raise. Mike Bennett is here. Mike, you have a relationship with Doug Busby, and I've been advised that as hard as Doug has tried to clear the shoulder on Captiva Drive so that people can walk and bicycle, and avoid the vegetation and sand that may cause danger, particularly at the Jensen's curve and the other curve on Captiva. My understanding from people who traverse those areas is that things become dangerous again in certain areas. And Greg Fergus and Jen, his wife, have reached out to me, and they'd be willing to work with Mike Yu and with Tony Lappy, who's on your committee, and maybe Doug Busby, to work in a detailed explanation to Doug about what changes have to be made so that is safe. It's not a matter of changing the code or anything, but just the maintenance of the shoulder. So I am going to pass to you. I don't know if you know Greg Fergus, but I'm going to pass you his information. They use that shoulder all the time, either walking, running, or bicycling, and they can pinpoint the areas where there are problems, and maybe you and he and Tony work with Doug to try to alleviate that problem. Would that be okay with you?
Happy to do that.
Okay, so I'll get you his information after the meeting.
Very good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any questions relating to that? Okay. The next thing is the County South Seas redevelopment legal update. Nothing has really changed since our last meeting. The appeal of the 912 limit that Judge Schenko in the court has limited to South Seas is still under appeal by South Seas in the county, and we still don't have any panel assigned to it or any dates for oral argument. There are 2 cert petitions challenging the rezoning that the Board of County Commissioners approved last couple of months ago. And those cert petitions, one brought by one of the property owners, where they claim that the easements have been and the setbacks have not been appropriately applied, therefore causing problems for his single-family home. And we have the cert petition filed by the CCA, virtually all the Captiva associations, all of the South Seas associations and RLR. That petition challenging the approval of the zoning, that is also pending, and we have not heard anything more from the courts on those 2 petitions. And then the appeal by the CCA and the City of Sanibel on the change of the code, which exempted South Seas from the building heights and the density limitations that apply to the rest of the Captiva. That appeal is still pending. There's been no panel assigned to it, and no oral argument set. So that is the status quo with respect to that litigation. The lawsuit by South Seas against the CCA for claiming that the 912 limitation included hotel rooms, that is still pending. The CCA has filed sanctions and for attorney's fees against South Seas for bringing that action because it believes it's frivolous. And we have now been told that that case has been transferred from the judge who originally was assigned that case, and that case has been transferred to Judge Schenko, who is the judge who issued the original opinion limiting development to 912 on South Seas. And we feel that's a good thing because he's fully familiar with this issue. So that's where we are with the existing legal matters that are pending regarding the density on South Seas. Is there any questions regarding that?
David, how long ago was the Schenko judgment made?
His decision, oh, Jeff, Jay, I have to look that up, but
It's a year or so, isn't it, at least?
It was like mid-February.
would be almost a year, right? Yeah.
And we still haven't heard anything about when the appeal might be heard or.
Right. All the briefs have been filed. The appellate briefs have been filed by, the appeals briefs have been filed by South Seas and Lee County. The responses have been filed. The replies have been filed. We're just waiting to hear from the courts when it'll be assigned to a panel and when they will hear oral argument. Even when that takes place, there's no timetable. Even if they hear the case or review the briefs, hear oral argument, it could still be a significant amount of time before they issue a decision.
Is there any standard that exists for cases like this that, they're supposed to get it done in such and such a time? So this could conceivably go on 4 or 5 years, maybe?
I don't suspect it will go on 4 or 5 years, but everybody who has an appeal pending generally believes that their case is the most important one in the world.
Right.
And the courts have limited resources. And so they schedule them as best they can. You don't want to be in a situation where judges move so quickly that they don't really take the time necessary to really understand the case and to issue a decision that is well thought through. So they have limited resources, and I'm confident that they will schedule this as soon as they can. I don't know if that helps.
Okay, but there's South Seas cannot do anything in terms of developing in a way that would violate our density code right now.
South Seas has no. South Seas has they've been approved for their rezoning, but they're aware that there are cert petitions challenging that rezoning, and they're aware that there is a judgment out there from a circuit court saying that they're limited to 912. So technically, without violating that court order, they could build up another 272 units. The problem is they don't want 272 units, so they want
Okay, right. But they can't proceed with the
hotels.
zoning changes that they got. They have to abide by what existed at the time they bought the property in terms of density now.
They have to, they are governed by the existing court decision that limits them to 912 units. If they want to comply with that court decision, they cannot build more than 272 units on South Seas. If they choose to violate that or to ignore it, then they will be in violation of that court decision, and they will take their risk in terms of what a court would do under those circumstances.
Okay. Thanks, David.
Hey, David, is there additional appeals actions with the writ of certiorari, depending on how that case goes? Can that be appealed to a higher court, whatever decision is made?
Well, what happens is there are two petitions filed, one from Soraya and one from the associations and RLR and CCA. They are pending before two judges. Actually, the CCA RLR association one is now been filed before Judge Schenko, and the other one before Judge Cohen. They review those petitions. If they think they have merit, they will issue an order to show cause to the county or South Seas to respond to the claims and the claims in the petition. They will then respond to those claims. We will have an opportunity to reply to their response, we being the community or Soraya, and then the court will hear that case. The court will make a determination as to whether to issue a writ of certiorari in response to the petition. If they do, that is appealable. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so you're saying it would be appealed to the same, what level of appeal? Does it go to the 6th district where the other cases are pending?
I believe so. I think what really happens I'm not fully familiar with this, but what happens with the cert petition is that a circuit court judge, in this case, Judge Cohen or Judge Schenko, depending on which petition you're looking at, basically acts as an appellate judge on the appeal of the decision of the Board of County Commissioners. And so they really have an appeal a role because you're not having a trial in front of him presenting new evidence. You're basically asking him to make a decision upon the evidence that appeared before the Board of County Commissioners. So it's not a de novo trial. And then they will issue that decision. I believe that decision is appealable.
Okay, and then on the other cases that are before the 6th district, there is some opinion that that's kind of like the last stop for whatever party may not prevail in the case to appeal it higher than the 6th district.
I think there's an assumption about attorneys that the Supreme Court of Florida, which would be the next level, has limited jurisdiction and only takes certain kinds of cases. And this is the kind of case they would probably leave it with the decision of the appellate court as opposed to taking it on themselves, because there's a history of the jurisdiction, the issues that they handle.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. The next thing on the agenda is I want to advise the panel that at 7 a.m. on December 23rd, I got my doorbell rang, and I got served with a summons and complaint as president of the Captiva Community Panel. Basically, the complaint asserting that South Seas does not believe that we provided their attorney with all of the records that they've requested from the panel in a timely fashion. And what they're basically claiming in the complaint is that they're aware of other public records. They made public records requests to other agencies. I'm assuming to Sanibel and maybe the county. I don't know. I know they did the CEPD. And they think that based on what they've gotten from other organizations, that looking at those, that we haven't provided everything that we have. Related to community planning, our community planning effort that also mentions Timbers, South Seas, or their zoning application. And so we talked to our attorney on this. We believe that we made a good faith effort in providing documents. I know Ken Gooderham has. I know I've gone through my emails the best I could. I know other members of the panel have done the same based on the word search that basically on the South Seas items that they were looking for. And we think we've been in compliance, but and the other records that they say they've seen that leads them to believe we haven't provided anything, they have not provided the copies of those records attached to the complaint. So we frankly don't know what they're talking about. But in any case, we're happy to provide anything that meets the criteria that they've requested, and we continue to do so. However, we have a complaint that's been filed with the courts, so I am the attorney who we've been working with, Jim Lake, basically is not the litigation attorney that we've been using down, or that the community's been using in Lee County. And so I'm going to ask the panel to approve a motion to have Michael Witt of the law firm of I know he just moved his law firm, but I'm going to ask Michael Witt, who's handled most of all the CCA cases and the case for Soraya, actually. And he's with the Schutz law firm. I'm going to ask that we pass a motion that we ask Michael Witt to review the complaint and to do whatever is necessary to defend the panel in terms of this public records request. And then he will review it, and then we can give a report at the next meeting about what his opinion is of the complaint that was filed, and whether it has any merit or whether we should do anything in response to it. So I'd like to make a motion that the panel retain Michael Witt, who's been dealing with most of the litigation involving the South Seas, and he would do that. I spoke with him. He would do it at the same discounted hourly rate that he provides for CCA and the other organizations he's representing.
So this effort would be funded by the panel, not Protect Captiva.
And that brings the other point I wanted to raise. With the panel's permission, I would like to request the legal team of Protect Captiva to support this litigation effort and to pay for the attorneys associated with it. I think that there's no question in my mind that this panel and this public records request and this litigation would not take place but for the Protect Captiva attempts to prevent the increased density on Captiva and the lawsuits against South Seas and the county. So I see it as part of the same issue, Jay. And so we raise funds through Protect Captiva to support litigation on these matters. The panel has made contributions to Protect Captiva in the past. And so I think it's appropriate that not the panel itself, but that Protect Captiva pay for the legal fees associated with defending this litigation on the public record. With the panel's permission, I would like to make that request. I'm fairly confident that the legal team at CCA and Protect Captiva would agree.
Do you need a resolution on that, or what?
I just need agreement on that, and I would get back to you with what they say. So I need agreement on that, and I need just a motion passed that we retain Michael Witt, who's been handling most of the litigation involving this issue. Though the Protect Captiva would pay for Michael Witt and Jim Lake, because he will assist Jim Lake, who's been handling the public records request, he would assist to the extent necessary Michael Witt. But even though Protect Captiva would pay for the litigation, we would be the client. We, the panel, would be the client, and we make the decisions with respect to all this litigation with Michael Witt. So even though it's being paid for by Protect Captiva, we, the panel, would be the client, and we are the decision maker in that case. Do I have so I'm making.
I move that we do that.
Nate?
I move that we do what you requested.
I'll second.
Worded.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Okay, motion passed. Thank you. Okay, next thing on the agenda is a discussion of the fire department referendum and the Rauschenberg property. Does anybody want to take a 5-minute break before we start this? Or should we just continue? Don't everybody speak at once. I can't.
Well, I could use
Continue.
5 minutes if nobody else wants
Take
to.
a 5-minute break.
Okay, it's now 10:21. We're going to start this at 10:26.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, it's 10:26. Is everybody back?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so now we're going to have a little discussion of the Rauschenberg property and the bond issue, get people's responses. I just want to give a little background on the Rauschenberg Foundation. I sent out to the panel members basically a draft of what we know so far, and as a possible draft of what we can send to our members, following up on our prior correspondence.
Yeah, I thought it was well done, David.
Yeah. Okay, and thank you, Jeff. Jay, I just want to say what we know. What we knew prior to Thanksgiving and Christmas is that there were basically four final bidders for the Rauschenberg property. And we knew one of them was the fire department. We know one of them was a community investor who had told the Rauschenberg Foundation that it would sell the 9.81 acres on the Bayside to the fire department, assuming the referendum was passed. So there was basically one bidder, which was combined between the community investor and the fire department. Then there was a second bidder, which was a major developer in Southwest Florida. We know the name of the developer. I'm not going to say it today, but it is a major developer that develops in Naples and Bonita and Fort Myers, and they had the wherewithal to purchase this property. But we know they advised the foundation, even though they put in a bid, that they preferred that the bid be granted, the contract be given to the community investor and the fire department, because they thought that was in the interest of Captiva. So even though they put in a bid, they wanted the community investor and the fire department to get the property. And then there was another bidder. We knew there was a fourth, and everybody assumed it was South Seas Timbers, but nobody knew for sure because there was no confirmation made by the brokers. The brokers did tell the community investor and its representative, as well as the fire department, that the foundation was having difficulty putting together a meeting and during the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, and therefore that's why they could not make a decision on who they would give the contract to. And so there was an assumption that this would take place after the holidays. After the holidays passed, some of us, including the representative of the fire department and others, called the broker because they were curious when the meetings would be held with the foundation. And when they made those phone calls, the broker advised those individuals that a contract had already been signed with one of the bidders. Neither the big developer who I've told you about, the well-established developer, neither the fire department nor the community investor was advised by the foundation or the broker that a contract had been executed with the other bidder, which we assumed at that point was South Seas. I will tell you, everybody was pretty dismayed and surprised by that for two reasons. One, they were shocked that the foundation would sell it to South Seas if that was the purchaser. because of the legacy of the Bob Rauschenberg and his efforts to prevent the expansion of South Seas onto that property over the decades. So that was the number one surprise. But the other surprise was the way it was handled, that they were not advised that a contract had been signed with one of the bidders, even though they had gone through the process, the interview process, the due diligence process, submitting a bid, answering a questionnaire, et cetera, et cetera. So it was both the result that was concerning as well as the process. That's all the information we have at this time. I'm assuming that it's South Seas, but I don't know for sure. But they were the only other bidder that we were advised at some point was looking at the property, and we know the other three of the four finalists did not get the contract. So that's basically what we know. What I do know also is that the attorney for South Seas, who represented South Seas during the Hex proceeding, has put into Lee County a request for a zoning verification letter. What that means is that this attorney has asked Lee County to confirm what is the zoning on the Rauschenberg property. They've listed all the Rauschenberg properties, the full 22 acres is what they're seeking to know from the county, exactly what the underlying zoning is and what the code, Captiva code is that controls development on those 20 acres or 22 acres. And she's also requesting whether or not anything in the Captiva Community Plan, the comprehensive plan, affects development on those properties. She has submitted a fairly comprehensive set of questions for the county to answer. And so I would say it's strong circumstantial evidence, since this request was made on December 22nd of 2025. I think there's strong circumstantial evidence that the contract was signed with South Seas, since this was the attorney for South Seas. But again, we don't have official confirmation from the foundation or from the broker, though I suspect the foundation will have to issue a statement soon, because word is spreading like wildfire that they basically seemingly has betrayed the community and Bob Rauschenberg's legacy by contracting with South Seas. So that's where we stand on the property. In terms of the referendum, we don't know. We've heard a report from the Jeff Howell and Jeff Brown as to what their needs are. We don't know what the future status of a helicopter landing zone will be on the Rauschenberg property. There is a possibility that if it is South Seas, they may choose to sell the landing zone to the fire department. They may be required to do so by a contract restriction in there or condition. We just don't know, which is why one of the reasons the fire department wants to have the bond issue passed and the money in hand, if in fact they need it. We also don't know whether that contract will be performed. It supposedly, we were told, it's going to close by the end of the first quarter, which will be March 31st. But we don't know whether or not South Seas is, if it's South Seas, is looking for some kind of signal from the county in terms of development. We just don't know what conditions there are on that contract. So the fire department wants the bond issued. They're not advocating for it one way or the other, but they believe they need the funds not only to purchase something on the Rauschenberg property if they have an opportunity to do so, but also to find other properties necessary to make sure that Captiva has the services it needs. So that's where we stand. I open it up to discussion. We can discuss either what happened with the Rauschenberg property, or we can discuss the referendum and people's view of it. my view, and it's in the draft of the letter I sent out to everyone, though I think it makes the referendum is much more difficult than it could have been if in fact the property was sold to the community investor and the 9.81 acres would have been for purchase by the fire department and everybody would know what the bond issue was for. That would have been a very neat and pretty way of doing this. It would have been an easy question. It's a little more difficult because we don't know what's happening with the Rauschenberg property, and we don't know exactly what opportunities the fire department, the fire control district will have in terms of getting a helicopter landing zone and other property that they need to service the community. However, some people may think it's a close question. Where I come down on it is I trust the fire department. I trust that they're not going to issue bonds or tax residents unless it's in our interest, unless we participate in that process, and unless it's absolutely necessary. So given that the referendum is on the ballot, it can't be removed. At this point, my personal view is that the people of Captiva should support this referendum. I open it up for discussion.
Do you want the discussion related just to the fire referendum now, or do you want to?
Whatever you want to. They're related. The Rauschenberg Foundation, the fire department, the referendum. I think we should just try to have this discussion here and not limit it to one subject or another.
Okay. Well, I guess my question would be, David, assuming it is South Seas, would they have a more difficult time getting a rezoning of the Rauschenberg property than they did, with the original South Seas, land? I mean, the fact that Rauschenberg is clearly it's part of Captiva now. It didn't have a special, development order or anything like that. Or would it be more difficult for them to get the county to override our zoning, or would you expect probably the same kind of outcome? I'm speaking primarily in terms of density.
My understanding of the 20 acres is that's part of the Captiva Village. It's governed by the Captiva Code, which is 3 units per acre for both hotel units and for residential dwelling units. It's 3 units per acre, same as the rest of Captiva. That's the code. The county could amend the code, which is what they did, exempting South Seas in the past from that 3 units per acre limitation. They did that under the Captiva Community Plan, because the Captiva Community Plan said that the historic development pattern at Captiva is low-density residential dwelling units and South Seas. And so the county incorrectly, in our view, and that's what all this litigation is about, said that South Seas is exempt from the historic development pattern on the rest of Captiva.
Now that's a key point. I don't think I realized that before. They were saying that, okay, there is 3 units per acre generally throughout Captiva, but South Seas, it doesn't apply there. Is that what they were saying?
They were saying that the historic development pattern of the comprehensive plan did not apply to South Seas in the same way that it applied to the rest of Captiva.
Okay, so that would imply then it would make it more difficult for them to.
Yes. All things being equal, on paper, it would be more difficult to remove the 3 units per acre zoning limitation for hotels and dwelling units on residential dwelling units on those 20 acres than it would be at South Seas. The answer to your question is yes, it should be more. Do I have faith that the county will not do something to make it easier? There's no reason to have faith in the county at this point.
Yeah,
but I think from a litigation from a legal standpoint, I think it'll be more difficult.
For them to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I think there's 3 unit per acre limitation. There's all the setback issues. There's the wetland issues. You know, I guess if it was just flat undeveloped land, you would have 60 single family units there. You know, the equivalent of what Sunset Captiva is today, which is about 59 or so units. But I don't think that's what South Seas would be interested in. So they would probably seek a rezoning and an amendment to the code and possibly amendment to the plan. And that would engender the same kinds of issues that are being litigated today.
Well, what basis would the county have to grant that those variances to a South Seas purchaser of this? How could they do that without saying then, well, that means we can do this anywhere on Captiva?
That they are the legislative body for Lee County, and they can change the plan and the code by virtue of them voting on it.
They made it clear in the zoning hearing that they passed a lot of that because of fiscal reasons, because of money.
Right, right. But it would seem to me, though, that if they did it this time where there wasn't any defense that, well, the historical pattern of development didn't apply to South Seas, they don't have that defense in this case. It would seem to me that if the county were to grant them density variances for the Rauschenberg property, there's no way they could not grant density variances at any other place on Captiva.
They would have to, in my view, they would have to amend the comprehensive plan in order to amend the code to allow them to do that.
Right.
Amend the plan, amending it strictly for South Seas would be somewhat of a problem. Yeah, so it raises all kinds of precedential issues, Jay, and I just don't know. I just don't know what the purchaser or South Seas would have in mind for that property.
Well, it just seems to me from a, and I guess I'm getting way down the line, past the line here, that this would be far more damaging to our future to have this changed than even having South Seas changed was.
I agree with that. Yes,
Yeah.
it would be a real problem.
I'm not exactly sure how the process works. Is it just up to the Lee County commissioners to change it, or I remember when the Captiva Community Plan was created, it was much higher instances. It was the House of Representatives, Mike Bennett back in the day, that supported us. And so David, what is the process? How would they do it if they wanted to do it?
I don't think it goes to the state level. The only way it would go to state level is through litigation. The county is the legislative body for Lee County. I mean, the Board of County Commissioners is the legislative body. They can amend the code. They can amend the plan. If they amend the code, it's got to be consistent with the plan. They amend this code to allow that to remove the 3 units per acre would be inconsistent with the plan. So either win that in litigation, or they would have to amend the plan so that it would allow them to amend the code. And that would be a difficult series of hurdles, but it's certainly, they have Marguerite, they have the authority to do that. Maybe if it looks like it's going in that direction, we go back to the state legislature and we have them create some kinds of special conservation zone for Captiva or the rest of Captiva other than South Seas. We'd have to figure that out. But they do have on paper the authority to do exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's what you answered my question because I wasn't sure if they needed like a referendum, to sanction that kind of decision. But you answered the question. Yeah.
Um, for example, in the charter of Sanibel, they would need a referendum to do that kind of thing, to change densities in certain ways, because they're incorporated and they created their own rules. But that would not be true in Lee County, and it would not be true in on Captiva. My understanding, by the way, Greenwell, the county commissioner, passed away, and my understanding is that the Governor DeSantis just appointed a new county commissioner the other day.
Well, that was the county commissioner that has a historic bias towards our point of view against development versus the wishes of the people.
No. It was a 4-1 vote. Kevin Ruane is the only one that voted against the rezoning. Mike Greenwell, he voted for the rezoning. He had his own litigation problems rezoning his properties up in Lee County, but he passed away, and it's the governor who appoints a replacement or a new county commissioner on an interim basis until there can be an election.
Right, but I read in the papers though that one person that was being considered for that was a person who is more anti-development than.
There was somebody from that area where Greenwell lived, where she actually, my understanding, is won the vote in that district, but lost it countywide because the county commissioners get elected throughout by a county vote. Yeah, she applied to be the interim representative on the Board of County Commissioners, and she didn't get it.
She didn't get it right.
She didn't get it. Yeah. Okay.
I thought she did. I thought she did get appointed.
I don't think so.
There is a woman who's been appointed who lives out there, from what I understand, and she is going to fulfill his term, is what I understand.
Well, the last I had, Ken, was that she wanted to be appointed, and it wasn't known at that time if she was or not.
The person who is appointed is
Chris Petrosky. No?
Chris Petrosky, right?
Yeah.
And she lives out there, and
I will let you know in 2 seconds whether she was the person you think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, while David's looking that up, everybody should understand that on the Rauschenberg property, the 22 acres, is made up of 9 different parcels that are zoned, that have 4 different zoning classifications on them, from commercial to light commercial to certain residential aspects in that zoning. So, and some of that zoning crosses over into different segments of the property. So it's pretty complicated.
So we shouldn't just be thinking of
22
that
acres.
as the base same thing as 3 units per acre that we have everywhere else on Captiva.
Well, it's like David said, if you recall, during the land development code changes, supposedly, instructed by the county commissioners, they actually had a map that outlined where those land development code changes were going to take place, and that was a map of South Seas. And anything outside of that was under a different set of restructuring of land development code, which I think strictly dealt with height regulations more than anything else. I think there was no density changes whatsoever. So, and David and I have talked about this. I think it would have to go through the proper channels of land development code change, which is a whole different aspect than it was before, because the request supposedly should be made by the developer. And if it's made by the developer, then there's a number of hurdles, like additional public meetings that have to be really, those public meetings are really regulated. And so there's a lot of levels of approval there that would take place in time. And then if they were successful at changing land development code, then the properties would have to be rezoned. And, this is a situation that makes our cert claim, a writ of certiorari that's in with Judge Shanko, all that more important, frankly, for how they view the zoning changes.
Yeah, this is complicated stuff. Amanda Cochran was the woman who was from that area in Green Wales area and ran for county commissioner at the last election. She was not appointed.
It's not her. Okay.
Yeah. But I thought the woman they did appoint was also sort of against the overdevelopment of that area because she lives in that area as
No,
well.
she just moved into that area after Greenwell died. She was living in Bonita Springs and
Oh,
working as a realtor.
okay.
Yeah, we don't know anything about her. At least I don't. And but I know it's not Amanda Cochran. Okay, let's stay on the topic. So we all know I don't think there's anything really much more to say about the Rauschenberg sale other than what we already know and what we don't know. The question is, I sent a draft out to people basically explaining what happened and supporting, asking people to for the panel supporting the referendum. And I guess is there any discussion of that or objections to that?
I think it's a fine document.
Any other thoughts on that?
Could I comment just a little bit?
Absolutely.
So I've been through some of these referendums before, and the don't need $24 million now, but if you want to have another referendum, it's a big deal, and it's the amount of time to get that done. So that's an issue. The other, and I trust the fire department. So I guess what I'm trying to say, which not very well, is I support the referendum. I don't spend all the money. I don't think they all the money. Practice at this point is to support it.
Yeah,
That's
I
it.
appreciate that. And I think that it also behooves us to work with the fire department, go to their meetings, if in fact there are opportunities that arise for them to do that, and so that the community is fully engaged in what the fire department wants to do and how they want to do it. So I think that's what's important. Is there
Yes.
any other comments about this? And do I have a motion? If not, do I have a motion to have Ken Goodham send out that letter to our panel members and community?
You'll need to send me a copy of that letter, David. I don't have it.
You should have it, but I will definitely send it to you.
I so move.
Okay,
I second.
okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, it passes. Next thing is, thank you, folks, and I'm sure Department thanks you. Stormwater Committee, Jay Brown.
There hasn't been much progress since the last meeting, so I'm just going to try to overview so everybody understands what the key issues are here with wastewater. Now, as I said at the last meeting,
Jay, we're on stormwater.
what? Oh, I'm on stormwater? I'm sorry. Okay. On stormwater, I got an update from Phil Gilligy, who is the operations manager that's responsible for guiding the consulting project. He told me that the modeling, verifying the accuracy of the model is proving more difficult than what they thought, and that there was going to be some delays in the project. He thinks that we will still probably be able to have the project complete with a public meeting in April, but he thinks that it'll probably be later than February before we have the draft to review. So that's basically the update I have from him. I frankly, David, don't get a whole lot out of him. As you know, we made a big case that we ought to be sitting in with the consultant on these monthly reviews with them and how they could benefit from our local knowledge, and that went nowhere. So the consultant is still of the opinion that the public shouldn't be involved in this consulting project, that he should run it, on his own, and then we get to see the finished product.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I guess the net of that is he still expects to have the basic job finished in April, with a final report and a presentation to the public.
Okay. Wastewater.
Okay, on wastewater, not a lot of change since the last meeting. I just want to bring everybody up to date on my thinking on this project. I think you'll all remember from my past presentation that we originally thought this was going to be about a $20 million project for us to, create a central sewer system in Captiva, and then there would be basically no expense to get our waste to Sanibel, have them process it, and then dispose of the waste. So we did all these consulting studies, and it turns out that Sanibel is going to have all kinds of costs receiving our waste. The two biggest things being they have to build a parallel pipe to handle our waste across Sanibel to Donax. And secondly, they have to do a new deep injection well. So that effectively increases the cost of our sewer system from $20 million to $75 million, which works out to about $125,000 a property versus the original $30,000 to $35,000 a property, which is what we would cost. So I don't think that that plan is doable. I think the only way that that becomes doable is if we are somehow able to get very substantial amounts of public funding, either that or Sanibel recognizes that the need for the additional pipe and the need for the additional deep water injection well is driven as much as by incursion of stormwater into their existing system as it is by serving Captiva customers, and therefore they should be picking up some significant share, of those additional costs. So I think those are the only two ways out of it, or to bring the cost down where it might be feasible to us. I think we've got to look at another option, which is to harden the FGA plant and expand capacity at FGA. Kimberly Horn has done some preliminary work, and they think it's possible to harden the FGA plant in such a manner that it could, stand in perpetuity in spite of its present location in a tidal area, and expand the capacity and probably get that done on a significantly cheaper basis than what the Sanibel plan would be. So I think we need to start, developing that as another alternative to our sewer project. To do that, David, I think is going to require getting a lot of help from the county. Uh, you know, Ruane has been steadfastly against, anything in the past that involves the continuation of FGA. So I think as a starting point there, we'd have to get with, Kevin and see if he could be convinced that, FGA could be made reliable and sustainable. Otherwise, I don't think that strategy will go anywhere.
Yeah, and Jay, it's not clear to me yet. It may be more clear to you, but it's not clear to me yet that the FUA alternative in hardening that and raising it is going to be cheaper than the Sanibel option.
Yeah. Well, just based on their rough cut numbers, it would be. But, and, too, I think you'd want some other outside party verification that this really would be, a successful hardening. It's
Right.
kind of
Yeah,
hard to believe that you can have a big wastewater plant in the middle of a mangrove field.
I mean, and the question that's going to come to the panel and to the community is this a binary issue? Do we need sewer in order to survive on Captiva with rising groundwater and septic's failing? Is that, if that is a definitive yes,
Yeah.
then figure out how to do it, one way or the other. And, increasingly it looks like it's a definitive yes, but we
Well,
need,
but you don't know how much time that is, David. You could make a case, a third option would be is, well, maybe we were premature, looking at this, what's the long-term future of septic systems on Captiva, and maybe that should be done as part of a long-term Captiva resilience plan, rather than just that one element of long-term resilience being moved ahead of everything else.
yeah, I know they're failing in heavy rains and flooding, there's failing septics, whether that could mitigate it, that's something that we may have to look at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's kind of where I am right now. I'm happy to hear any comments people on the panel might have, or
Jay, have you done any really simple model about what it would take to put all these septic systems into a third generation system such that they're not all failing?
um, well, I think as long as it's a septic system, the wastewater has got to be dispersed into the groundwater. And when the groundwater rises, it seems to me, no matter what kind of septic system you have, the septic system's going to fail.
Uh, well, if you talk about like Marguerite's option,
Yeah. And I have to apologize to Marguerite that I have not gotten back to you to learn more about your system. Um,
yeah, there's some that what you're doing is you process it. My understanding, which couldn't be wrong, is that you process the waste so much that it basically turns into
oh
water.
yeah, no, I know that. But again, the issue is if you have groundwater rise, the septics will not discharge into the groundwater. They'll back up.
Well, if we're underwater, yes.
Yeah.
But if they're discharging water, they just become something equivalent to water.
But they can't discharge water if the drain field is covered.
But that means
Groundwater.
no, do you need well, I think it's worth understanding more about this because
Well, I have. I mean, everybody's told me that. You can't if you don't have separation of groundwater from, the septic field, the contents of the septic tank can't empty. You can't empty. And that's why you get plumbing backups.
Yeah, what I think Linda's trying to get at here is that if you have a septic system that treats the water to drinking water
Yeah,
standard,
right.
you could just, rather than it having to be go into a drain field, it can just be sprayed as, on the surface, and you don't really need a drain field. But I'm not sure that's
I
true.
don't think such a thing exists. I
Yeah,
know.
yeah, no, those miniature treatment centers, that's what they are.
Uh-huh.
What you have is you don't spray it. You have perforated hoses in your landscape where the water floats out. And yes, it would not work if your property is underwater.
Right.
It also only works if you have electricity. But we wouldn't be on the island if our property is still underwater. Most probably, I mean, we do not have the option of, there's no well that we can, how's it called? We don't have an injection, which the big public treatment centers, so that's what they do. They inject the water deep, I don't know how deep, and make it disappear.
Right.
So with a home treatment center, you don't have that option. But
Right.
yeah.
Right. Well, the cost of advanced treatment is about $35,000,
Hey, this is Mike Bennett. I'm supposed to be on a Zoom call there right now.
Mike, you're on, there you go. Okay.
But yeah,
Um, yeah.
what is
So,
that?
but I'm told that, advanced treatment doesn't solve the basic problem of septics backing up with rising groundwater. Otherwise, we would, if it was just a matter of not polluting the coastal waterways, if you weren't worried about rising groundwater, the obvious thing to do is to, over time, try to convince everybody to uh, move on to performance-based septic systems.
Right.
Yeah, I want to leave this to another discussion another day with Jay. And I mean, the question that Marguerite raises is, and she said it, is that if her property's flooded, it won't work. The question is, what's flooded mean? Does it mean that the groundwater's got to be at the surface, or does it mean it's got to be 2 feet down or 1 foot down? Jay, you'll figure that out with Marguerite, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also,
I think Marguerite has already said it probably won't work, but
No, what I meant is it doesn't make sense to send the water if the proper what you do is you water your landscape with the treated water. And there are places right across from the library that have that system. You
right.
can put those tanks at any height.
Right.
You can overcome the problem of of sea level rise, of groundwater level rise by just installing the tanks a little higher, and then the treated water you just put in your landscape. In the village, it might be a problem. I don't know if all properties have enough landscape for the water to be dispersed. If your property is big enough, that wouldn't be a problem.
Okay. I want to leave this for another discussion on another day, only because we're running late. Marguerite, Jay, anything else?
No, that's it. I think the direction I have here is to rethink other ways you could use performance-based systems.
Right. In addition to continue to work with Sanibel on what we're doing and the Kimmel.
Yeah. Okay.
Jay, there's also for smaller houses up north. There's places we can't have any. We put in tanks, and it's not a great solution. But the tanks, and then the tanks are pumped.
Linda, you were breaking up, but I really suggest you talk to Jay offline on this.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, David.
Marguerite, your development committee.
Yeah, so I have the nice job today because we're gonna have a fundraiser coming up the night before Valentine's. I would love to see all of you there. It will be held at the Civic Association, and it's from 5:30 to 7:30. We have hors d'oeuvres and a bar and beautiful music. And actually, if any of you have seen the movie from Laura de Bruce about Sanibel hurricane, what is the title? I can't think of it, but Cat Apple is actually doing the music for that movie. So she's our entertainment. This Thursday or Friday, I will put a poster in the post office, and by then I should have the number of sponsors. They are very few, but there are some, which is very nice. And the theme will be a Valentine's theme. So I think it will be a very nice event.
Could you repeat the date of that?
Yes, it's Friday the 13th. It's the night before Valentine's Day.
February 13th?
Yes.
And Friday the 13th. Okay.
Yes. Don't be superstitious.
Marguerite, please work with Ken so he can get out an invitation to everybody on our email list.
Yeah, the reason I'm waiting is I still have a couple of people getting back to me with little sponsorships So that's why I'm holding back.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Marguerite. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, and I like to see everyone there so we can have fun there.
Okay. We will punish anybody that doesn't show up.
Okay, I will. I'll make a list.
Next is the panel members' comments. Are there any comments from, well, before I ask the panel members, Ken, are there any comments from the audience?
There are not.
Well, okay. And any comments from panel members on any subject whatsoever? Mike?
Just one, Dave. David, I did speak again with the county DOT regarding the fortification project. They're engaged this month in selecting a project consultant who will help them plan and model the project, and expect to have that part of it concluded at the end of January. They've also included some overhaul repairs to Blind Pass Bridge as part of this. And I'm looking to find out more about exactly what those repairs are expected to be. But it sounds like there'll be some fortification work done there as well as on the Jensen's Curve project.
Mike, I apologize. I skipped the infrastructure committee on the agenda. I really do apologize.
That's all right.
Intentional. But thank you for that. Any other comments from panel members? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody. And again, a happy new year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.